I was delighted when Victoria asked me to do a little talk on writing for the clarinet. And interestingly, I have actually been writing for the clarinet virtually since I took up the instrument. My first lessons with John Davis. John Davis, who taught me at the academy, actually taught me at school as well. So I began with the wonderful John Davis. And my first clarinet piece, and I feel really quite ashamed of it now, was a clarinet sonata, and I could have been about 11 or something when I wrote this piece. But let me explain to you now how I kind of approached it. When I was quite small, and I do mean quite small, when I was really beginning to play the clarinet, so maybe 10 years old, um, I used to just explore the instrument and spend time not exactly improvising, but just messing around with the instrument really. And I discovered something that really took my fancy. And in my first clarinet sonata, when I can't find a copy of it, unfortunately, I know it's here somewhere, but I'm looking. But I remember one passage very well indeed. Um, and I just explored this thing that I suddenly discovered the clarinet can do, and I love the sound, this particular sound, the change you'll hear about halfway through this passage. I was going to play it to you. It's written down in the manuscript if I can find it, but this is what it does. That was a passage from it. I love that when you change it, obviously the fingering here, and of course it's all done by the correspondence mechanism. I didn't understand that at the time. I thought that is a really nice change, and it's just exploring the instrument just gives you ideas about kind of things you can write. During my time at the academy, and I was having composition lessons there with the excellent Timothy Baxter, I did write a few clarinet pieces. I remember one little set which is called Three Meanders for clarinet, never been published, but I have it downstairs somewhere. And of course, I was doing a lot of playing, but I was also doing quite a lot of teaching as well. And I've always loved teaching. And some of my first teaching was in Cambridge. And during this period, I actually wrote a clarinet tutor because I just wasn't very happy with what was available. And I was delighted and amazed, but I was delighted that Cambridge University Press published this tutor, the Cambridge Clarinet Tutor. It's actually still available. And I really thought very carefully, obviously, when writing a clarinet tutor, about what the clarinet does, how it does it effectively, and produced quite a lot of interesting little pieces, or I hope quite interesting little pieces. So I thought I'd just play you one piece from the Cambridge Clarinet Tutor. It comes quite early on, about the sixth or seventh stage, and it's a little piece, clarinet and piano, called Tecumseh's Dance. Some years later, I was able actually to write a second clarinet tutor. I don't think many people have had that luck to actually write two clarinet tutors and clarinet basics, which is very much around at the moment. And of course, when you write a clarinet tutor, you really do have to think about writing for the instrument. When you're writing a tutor, of course, the style has to be appropriate for learners. So one can't use anything too idiosyncratic, for example. Although going back to Tecumseh's Dance, you might have noticed some of my favourite seventh chords, particularly in that little piano interlude in the middle. I've always loved that kind of harmony, secondary sevenths especially, and progressions of secondary sevenths, and that very much colours the way I write, both harmonically and melodically. Anyway, so clarinet basics came along. One of my more serious pieces for solo clarinet is the Sonata Camera, and I'd just like to play. In fact, Victoria is going to play this in a moment. Just a snippet from the beginning of the slow movement, because this, I think, identifies how one's harmonic thinking influences and informs one's melodic thinking. Because in this opening, and the first two lines of it in particular, it uses very clarinety writing, kind of arpeggio figures across the registers. But it's very much based on the kind of harmony which I love, which are these secondary seventh kind of chords, but even more decorated ninths, and it goes on to even slightly more colourful harmony. So here's just the beginning of the slow movement of the Sonata Camera, played by Victoria, but really for you to see how harmony informs melody. I've been commissioned to write quite a few pieces, and one was this piece Encore, which I wrote for Nigel Hinson. And of course, when one is writing big pieces for really good players, then one draws on one's real understanding of the instrument, the technical possibilities of the instrument. And I had a lot of fun writing this piece and really showing what the clarinet can do, using the entire range, really some quite high notes in it as well, and giving really quite a tour de force of clarinet technique, as well as still being informed by that kind of sense of harmony which is very much behind the melodic writing. And here's part of a really excellent performance of this piece by the brilliant Australian clarinetist Mark Walton. Another serious piece, and not so much commission, but I wrote it for a particular friend of mine, rather sadly, who died at a very young age, the clarinetist Duncan Prescott. And in this Adagio, which is based on the Behrman Adagio, it's not based on it in a sense, but it uses some features, some ingredients from the Behrman Adagio at its climactic point. My Adagio quotes the famous opening theme from the Behrman. But not quite as Behrman did. But what I wanted to explore here, and again, being a clarinetist, one explores aspects of the instrument that the instrument can do so well. What I explored here was leaps. And this piece is full of really quite enormous leaps sometimes, or shorter ones, but still interesting ones. And that's very much is how this particular piece came together. And here again is Victoria, playing my Adagio on her lovely CD. And the final piece I thought I'd talk about is really quite a very recent piece, which was commissioned by Victoria, and you're going to hear a little bit played by Victoria, little sonatina for unaccompanied clarinet. And again, it's the same kind of rules apply really, but I thought I'd just play a little bit of the first movement. The idea here was not to write a particularly advanced piece, technically speaking, but a piece that had tremendous kind of colour and character. And you'll hear again from the beginning of this first movement of this little sonatina how it's the harmony that really dictates how the melodic line is going to unfold. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for listening to this short talk, which I hope that you've enjoyed. Thank you.